Before I tell you where this story ends, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And let me tell you this right now. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is absolutely nothing. Just wait. Let them walk into the wall they built themselves. I learned that the hard way. On a Tuesday night at my parents' kitchen table, over my mother's pot roast. I had driven 40 minutes to get there. I do it every few weeks. Not because it's easy, but because I still believe in trying. My mother sets the table with the good placemats. My father sits at the head and acts like the world is still organized the way he decided it was 30 years ago. And I sit across from my younger brother and remind myself that I am 31 years old. I have my own lease, my own car payment, my own 401k that I set up myself after watching 3 YouTube videos at midnight. I am a grown woman. I remind myself of this more often than I probably should have to. My name is not important. What matters is that I had spent 4 years building something I was proud of. I worked as a project coordinator for a mid-size logistics company downtown. It wasn't glamorous, but I was good at it, and it paid well enough that 2 years ago I put down a deposit on a 2-bedroom condo on the east side of the city. Second floor. Exposed brick on one wall. A small balcony where I kept 2 potted rosemary plants and a folding chair I used on Saturday mornings with my coffee. The second bedroom was my office. I had a proper desk in there, the kind with a hutch and enough surface space to actually spread things out. I had a monitor, a printer, and a bookshelf I assembled myself with a YouTube tutorial and a Phillips head screwdriver. I used that room every single day. I worked from home twice a week. I also did freelance bookkeeping on the side, 3 small business clients I'd built up over 2 years. That room paid for itself. I want you to understand what that room was before I tell you what my family decided to do with it. Dinner started normally. My mother asked about work. My father complained about traffic on the interstate. My brother sat on his phone until my mother told him to put it away, which he did for approximately 4 minutes. I talked about a project I'd been managing, a warehouse relocation that had been giving me headaches for 6 weeks. Nobody asked follow-up questions, which was fine. I didn't expect them to. Then my mother brought out the pot roast and my father cleared his throat. He does this thing before he announces something. A single, deliberate throat clear, like he's about to address a board meeting. I have heard that sound my entire life. It has never once preceded good news for me personally. He said that he and my mother had been talking. I put down my fork. He said that my brother had been having a tough stretch, that his roommate's situation had fallen through. His roommate, a guy named Derek, had apparently moved out with 2 weeks' notice to go live with a girlfriend in another state. My brother was now facing rent he couldn't cover alone. He was 26. He worked at a sporting goods store part-time and had been, according to my father, exploring his options professionally for about 8 months, which was a generous way to describe what I would call not doing very much. I listened. I kept my face neutral. My father said that they thought it made the most sense for my brother to stay with me for a little while. Just until he got back on his feet, just temporarily. My second bedroom was right there, wasn't it? It wasn't like I was using it for anything essential. I want to pause here and let that land, not using it for anything essential. My home office, my freelance business, the room where I made supplemental income, not essential. My mother jumped in before I could respond. She said it would only be a few months. She said family takes care of family. She said it with the specific warmth she uses when she has already decided the answer and is now simply waiting for me to agree out loud. I looked at my brother. He was looking at his plate. He had clearly known about this conversation before I arrived. He did not look guilty about this. He looked like a person waiting for logistics to be confirmed. I said I would think about it. My father said there wasn't much to think about. I picked my fork back up and finished my pot roast. On the drive home, I called my friend Diane, who I have known since college and who has, over the years, become the person I call when I need someone to tell me the truth without softening it. She picked up on the second ring. I told her what had happened. There was a pause on her end. She said, "Your dad really said it wasn't essential." I said, "Yes." She said some words after that which I won't repeat here, but which accurately captured my feelings on the matter. Then she asked me what I was going to do. I told her I didn't know yet. But I told her I was not moving my desk into the living room. I was not giving up my office. I was not becoming my 26-year-old brother's roommate because Derek had a girlfriend in another state. She said good. She said I needed to say that to them, not just to her. I said I know. The problem, and I want to be honest about this because I think a lot of people will understand it, is that saying no to my father is not a simple thing. It was never a simple thing. Growing up, no was not really a word that functioned the way it was supposed to in our house. When I was 17, I wanted to quit violin, which I had been playing without joy since I was 8, and my father sat me down and explained to me in very calm, measured terms why I did not actually want to quit violin, and I played violin for another 2 years. When I was 23 and got a job offer in another city, good job, good salary, good opportunity, my mother cried at the kitchen table, and my father said he didn't understand why I needed to run away from my family, and I turned down the job. I still think about that job sometimes. So yes, I still remember the casual shrug. I still remember the casual shrug. As she handed me $200 and wantable shrug, as she handed dollars and a gate 20 sadder stay in love. I also talked to a woman named Patricia who I worked with who was in her 50s and had raised 2 kids and had, at some point in her life, clearly decided she was done being managed by other people. I had always liked Patricia for this reason without fully understanding it until now. Patricia listened to the whole story. Then she said something I wrote down on a sticky note and put on my monitor. She said, "They already made the decision. You're not being asked, you're being informed. The only question is whether you confirm it or you don't." I looked at that sticky note for a long time. I called my mother on a Thursday evening. I told her I had thought about it and the answer was no. I said I needed my second bedroom as an office. I still remember the casual shrug, as she handed me 200 the murda and something I could fix by giving up my workspace. My mother said she was surprised at me. I said I understood. She said my brother needed help. I still remember they were fammed and I hoped he would find a good solution, but I wasn't able to be that solution right now. She said your father is going to want to talk to you about this. I said okay. My father called Friday morning. I was at work. He left a voicemail. His voice had that tone in it. Measured, a little disappointed. The tone that when I was young would make my stomach drop. He said he thought I was being selfish. He said family was supposed to be there for each other. He said he and my mother had not raised me to turn my back on the people who loved me. I listened to the voicemail twice. Then I texted my brother directly. I told him I was sorry his roommate situation had fallen through. I told him I wasn't in a position to have him stay with me, but I was happy to help him look for affordable options in the area. I found 3 apartment listings with roommate wanted ads and sent them over. He left me on red. I went back to work. I want to be clear that I did not think this was over. I know my family. I know how these things go. The first no is treated as an opening position, not a final answer. I had said no in a phone call to my mother and a voicemail to my father, and a text to my brother. In their framework, this meant the negotiation was still in progress, so I was not entirely surprised by what happened 12 days later. I was working from home that Wednesday. I was on my second cup of coffee and in the middle of reconciling invoices for one of my freelance clients when my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. It said they were in the neighborhood and wanted to stop by. They were not in the neighborhood. We live 40 minutes apart and my parents do not spontaneously end up in my neighborhood. I understood what this was. I texted back and said I was in the middle of work and it wasn't a great time. She replied that it would only take a few minutes. I set down my phone. I looked at my monitor. I looked up a spreadsheet open on my screen. Then I called Diane. She answered and I told her what was happening. She said, "Do you want me to come over?" I said yes. I said I know that's a lot to ask on a Wednesday morning. She said she worked remotely on Wednesdays and could be at my place in 15 minutes and honestly, she was not going to miss this. I said come. While I waited, I kept working. I finished the invoice reconciliation. I sent it to my client. I responded to 2 work emails. I was not going to let the arrival of my parents interrupt a billable hour. Diane got there in 13 minutes. I buzzed her up. She came in, poured herself a glass of water, and sat down at my kitchen counter like she was settling in for a show. I explained to her what I had decided to do. She looked at me for a moment. Then she said that is either the calmest response possible or the most unhinged one, and she honestly couldn't tell the difference, but she supported it either way. 20 minutes after that, my doorbell rang. I was sitting at my desk, in my office, working. I called out and told Diane the door was open. My parents had not met Diane. She had been my friend for 9 years, but she had never come to a family dinner, and my parents existed in a compartment of my life that I had learned, slowly and with some difficulty, to keep fairly separate. Diane opened my front door. I heard my mother's voice, surprised, asking who she was. I heard Diane introduce herself warmly and say it was just finishing up a work call and would be out in a few minutes. I heard her offer them something to drink. She offered with the easy confidence of someone who is completely comfortable in a space that is very clearly not her own, making other people feel like they are the visitors, which they were. They were visitors. They had shown up unannounced. They were visitors. I gave it 4 minutes. Then I saved my spreadsheet, closed my laptop, and walked out to my living room. My mother was standing near the couch. My father was looking at the bookshelf. Diane was leaning against the kitchen counter, holding her water glass with the expression of someone watching a nature documentary. My mother looked at me and then back at Diane and then at me again. I said hi. I said it was good to see them. I asked if they wanted to sit down. My father said they weren't going to be long. He said they had talked to my brother and he was ready to make the move work. He said they could help him with first month's rent so I wouldn't need to worry about that piece of it. I said I appreciated that they were trying to help my brother. I said the answer was still no. My mother started to say something about the second bedroom. I walked them to it. I opened the door. I turned on the light. My desk was there. My monitor was on. There was an open binder on the desk surface and a coffee mug and a sticky note on the monitor that said confirm invoice by EOD. It looked exactly like what it was. It looked like someone's workplace. I said this is my office. I still remember the casual shrug. As he handed client calls scheduled for 2 o'clock that afternoon in this room. My mother said it was just for a few months. I said no. My father said I was making a bigger deal out of this than it needed to be. I said I disagreed. I said that this was my home and my workspace and that I had said no clearly and I was saying it again now. I said I loved them and I loved my brother and I was not able to have him move in. I still remember the casual shrug. Set things the thous. My mother looked like she was going to cry. This is a tool she has used my entire life, and I want to be honest that even now it still hits me somewhere in the chest, some old, trained reflex. I felt it. I just didn't move. My father said he was disappointed in me. I said I was sorry to hear that. He said family was supposed to come first. I said I agreed with that, which was why I was protecting the stability I had built so I could continue to be a reliable person and not someone who was stretched past her capacity and resentful of everyone around her. I said that was actually what putting family first looked like from where I was standing. He didn't have an answer for that right away. Diane, from the kitchen, took a long, quiet sip of her water. My mother said they should go. She said it in the clipped way that means she is hurt, but has decided to process it later, possibly in a phone call with my aunt. I walked them to the door. I hugged my mother. I told my father it was good to see him. They left. I closed the door. Diane put her water glass down on the counter. She said, okay. She said that was one of the more impressive things she had ever witnessed in a residential setting. She asked if I was okay. I sat down on my couch. I thought about it honestly. I said I thought so. I said it felt strange. Not bad. Just strange. Like the way your ears feel after a loud noise stops. She sat down next to me. I said I kept waiting for something to collapse. I said I had been saying no to this for almost 2 weeks, and every time I said it, I expected something to fall apart. My relationship with my parents, some fundamental structure. Something. And it hadn't. She said that was because no is a complete sentence, not a starting position. I had heard some version of that before, but it landed differently right then. My brother texted me that evening. He said he guessed I had made my decision. There was no question mark. It was not a warm message. I read it and I put my phone down and I thought about what I wanted to say back. I wrote, I have. I hope you find something that works well for you. The listings I sent are still good options. If you want help with the applications or putting together a rental resume, I'm happy to do that. He didn't respond that night. He did though, 3 weeks later. He texted to say he had found a place. A room in a house with 2 other guys. He said it was fine. He said the guy seemed okay. I still read that was great news. I asked if he needed anything for the move. He said no, he was good. It was not a warm exchange, it was a functional one. And I was okay with that. I think sometimes we confuse a relationship being uncomfortable with a relationship being broken. They are not the same thing. Discomfort is sometimes what the process of 2 people adjusting to a new dynamic feels like. I was willing to sit in that discomfort for a while. My parents took longer. My mother called about a month after the Wednesday visit. The conversation was careful on both ends. She asked about work. I told her about the warehouse project, which had finally wrapped up. She told me about a neighbor's garden. We talked for 20 minutes and neither of us brought up my brother or the second bedroom or any of it. It was, in its own way, a form of progress. My father and I are still finding our footing. He is not a man who updates his positions quickly. But he called on my birthday in March and talked for 10 minutes and asked about the freelance work, which was the first time he had ever asked about the freelance work, and I think that was his version of something. The sticky note is still on my monitor. I keep it there, not as a reminder about the invoice which I confirmed months ago, as a reminder of what the room looked like when I needed it to speak for itself. As a reminder that I stood in the doorway of my own office and said, plainly and without performance, this is mine and I use it, and the answer is no. I have a 2 o'clock call in that room today. After that, I'm going to make dinner and sit on my balcony and water the rosemary. I want to ask you something before I go. Have you ever had someone in your life treat your no like it was a first offer? Like it was just an opening move they could counter if they push hard enough? If you have, I want to hear about it in the comments. Tell me how you handled it. Tell me where you are watching from. And if you are in the middle of that right now, if you are sitting somewhere being told that your boundary is selfish, that family comes first, that you are making too big a deal of something that is, in fact, a very big deal, I just want you to know that no does not require a 10-minute explanation. It does not require your voice to stay perfectly steady. It does not require everyone in the room to agree with you. It just has to be true. If this one hit close to home, there's another story on this channel about what happens when a family decides that your success is a shared resource they never contributed to. The link is at the end of this video. I think you'll want to hear it. I'm glad you were here today. Take care of yourself.